Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have the lovely Mayra Powers with me today. Hi Mayra, how are you doing?
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having
Welcome. Mayra is a Blue Diamond Doterra, I don't know what you would say, representative or
distributor, essential oils distributor.
distributor of
Mhm.
essential oils, and her journey is so amazing. I couldn't wait to talk to her today. So welcome. Let's just deep dive right in. Anyway, I wanted to ask you first a little bit about your background. I know you grew up on a border town, and that probably greatly shaped and influenced your worldview and who you were as a young adult. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely, I'd love to. So I grew up in Reynosa, Mexico, which is a border town with McAllen, Texas. And I was very blessed because my mom basically sacrificed a lot of personal time to drive me across the border every single day. So we would wake up at 5 o'clock, starting in kindergarten through like fifth grade, so that she could wait in line and basically traffic for an hour, sometimes up to 2 hours to cross the border to get me to school. And so we did that every single day for 8 years. And then she continued to do that for my siblings. But thanks to that sacrifice from my mother, I'm able to speak English perfectly, understand the culture perfectly. And then she was also, my parents were both wise enough to realize that for me to not lose my culture and my, my heritage, that I also need to spend some time in having schooling in Mexico. So I went to junior high and high school in Mexico, and then I came back for college and grad school in the US. And so I'm blessed to truly not just be bilingual, but I feel like I'm actually bicultural. I really understand how my American friends think about the world and just their views. And I truly understand how my Mexican friends see the world. And I think that I'm very blessed to be able to see both sides. And it is actually something that I always felt a little sad about, because through my career, I have a corporate background. I worked in the energy industry in Texas, and I had a successful career. I really enjoyed my job, but I always felt sad that I wasn't able to use my Spanish, that I wasn't able to help people in Mexico. And
Mhm.
so when eventually, this is, I think, the greatest blessing with doTERRA, is that even though it wasn't what I went to school for and it wasn't in my plan for my life, I thought I was going to be CFO of some Fortune 500 company one day. That was my track. That's where I was, aiming. And then I ended up getting sick. We can talk more about that in a minute if you want. But having that, fork in the road and going towards the natural health and helping people with their physical health and their emotional health really opened up this whole opportunity to help people that speak Spanish. And I'm not limited to just people in Mexico. I actually have people on my team that I've helped support. I have a YouTube channel now. We just hit 10,000 subscribers last week.
Fantastic.
Which is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Like total, also not planned. Like that just kind of happened organically over the last couple of years. But I'm able to reach people in Europe. I'm able to reach people in South America, and it's so nice that have people contact me and say, hey, I love learning from you, because there's so much information in English on essential oils, but there's really just a handful of us that are teaching and educating in
Like an
Spanish.
untapped market for you. So that's incredible. I'm wondering how it was trying to navigate and find out your place in the world, going back and forth between those cultures, especially at such a vulnerable time, in middle school and high school. It's such a soul searching time, and under normal circumstances where you are raised and continue to live your life in one culture and be educated in one culture. So what was it like for you to navigate going back and forth? How did you find your place, and your identity?
So I love that you asked that question. You're so intuitive. Um, in elementary school, I was the top dog of my group of friends, because I'd been there since kindergarten, and a lot of my friends came like first, second, third grade. And so since I knew the ropes, right? So
Right.
going from being kind of like the leader of the pack to, I skipped sixth grade. So I went from fifth grade in the US to seventh grade in Mexico it was an all girls school, and all of these girls had gone to the same school together since kindergarten. So I
Okay.
come in 7th grade,
To
they're
break
all a year
into that.
older.
Yeah.
And it really taught me humility. It really taught me humility because I thought I was hot stuff up until that point, right? There had been no real challenges in my life. Everything was smooth sailing. And so it taught me humility and it taught me inclusiveness because it felt so, I just felt so isolated. Like I didn't have a way to relate to them. My Spanish wasn't that good because I thought in English because I've been going to school, you know,
Right.
TV, like music, everything was in English. So my communication, I struggled with communication. And then on top of that, they were all a year older than me. I mean, I was what, 11.
That's a big gap at that age, you
It was a
know?
big gap. It was a big gap.
Yeah.
But I was very blessed that I think maybe like probably took like a month or two. I think I needed that though. I think I needed to go, like looking back now, being the outsider from being the top dog to being like the complete outsider, no one wants anything to do with you, taught me just grace and to be kind to people.
Yeah.
And there was this one girl who one day just, I ended up, it was a classroom with 50 girls. And like I said, everyone already had their groups of friends. It was a huge classroom.
Oh my God.
Everyone already had their little groups, right? Like everyone had their groups. They've been friends since whatever, 1st grade, kindergarten.
Right.
And they rearranged the classroom. I remember that this girl, that she's actually still one of my dearest friends today. This girl that happened to, they rearranged, they sat her next to me. And she was just, I don't think she'd ever even noticed that I was there, right? And because with 50 girls and you go off and at recess, you're doing your thing with your friends and you just don't notice the new kid.
Right.
And she just saw me and she included me and she brought me into her little group.
Oh.
And yeah, so super sweet. And so for me, I don't think that if I hadn't gone through that experience that I would have had just what I do now. Like if I see that someone is left out, I automatically instinctively go and bring them in. And I think that I do that now, thanks to my friend who did that for me. And I'm pretty, like, that wasn't my temperament. I don't think that Mayra before a month and a half of being ignored would do that. But through that experience, I'm able to now see people and I don't like it when people feel left out. I feel like,
and you know, it's probably something you've carried through as you said, your whole life. So something that happened to you at such a young age is still influencing your choices and behavior today, which is so beautiful, which makes me realize that you don't know the impact you're having on someone else by being kind or showing compassion or not judging them, you know, especially at such a vulnerable time in middle school. I know that you have always been so driven and type A and such a high achiever academically and professionally. And I want to kind of fast forward to your corporate track because you know, had perfect grades in grad school. You were such a model student and person. It sounds like you were just on your A game all the time. What was it like for you to enter that realm of corporate America? I feel like you probably were just locked in right into your lane and just took the bull by the horns. What was that?
Loved it. I loved it. So I think that going back to just my upbringing real quick, I think because I did see the stark difference in the lifestyle and the opportunities from my friends that lived in the US versus my friends that lived in Mexico. So just to give you an idea, I studied accounting and the same company, they're not around anymore, but Arthur Anderson, their starting salary was 3 times the amount for a CPA in the US versus a CPA in Mexico. And I know that because a lot of my friends also studied accounting in Mexico. Right. And so for me, just I was always very grateful for the opportunity to work in the US, to live in the US. And so where a lot of times maybe in college and grad school, kids were like, I don't, they maybe didn't try quite as hard. They didn't meet their full potential because maybe they didn't have the same appreciation. For me, it was all about, I'm going to be the top of my class so that I have options and choices. And if my parents are making the sacrifice of paying for me to go to school here, then I need to have lots of options so that it actually is worth their while. And so I basically had my pick of jobs when I graduated, and I've always been very blessed. So started off in accounting, absolutely hated it. It wasn't my, auditing was not for me.
Yeah.
So did it for like a year, just enough to get the requirement to
Yeah.
actually become a certified accountant. And then I moved on to the corporate world. I worked for an independent power producer, which is more of an entrepreneurial job. But they brought me in as an MBA, even though I only have not only, but I didn't get an MBA. I did a 5-year program. So I got basically a 1-year master's degree, but they brought me in with their MBA. So they basically doubled my salary. So from 1 year to the next, I was making, more money than I.
Oh my gosh, that's like living the dream.
Yeah, just like I'm telling you, like I've been like I've got this wonderful. I've been blessed, and so it was just all of these opportunities, and I really enjoyed it. I loved doing well. I loved getting not the recognition like, oh, you did a great job, but the personal satisfaction of I am contributing. I am, doing something that matters. And so what I used to do was more on the pricing and structuring side. So I won't go into the details, I don't want to bore people, but basically when people sell wholesale power, there's a lot of math that goes behind that. I'm the person that did the math. And then eventually I moved from that to, corporate finance. And so it was very exciting for me.
I was going to say, it sounds like it was a really exciting time. And I think also, when you work so hard towards something and then you start to see and achieve it, there is a huge sense of self that is defined by that, right? You thrive, but at the same time, you lose a little piece of yourself because you're so involved and immersed, as far as maybe hours put in. And
so for me, it was a little different. I think things were awesome, but they changed when I had children and my priorities changed. So pre-children, I was rocking and rolling and having so much fun and loving it. And I worked with like 90% men, and I love that. Like for me, that was like, I'm here with the big boys and I'm like shoulder to shoulder, and
you're in the game.
I'm in the game and it's fun. Like we're winning, right?
You're playing it.
Yeah. And it was so rewarding. Like personally, I felt a lot of satisfaction with, I've worked so hard and I got to where I want to go.
You deserved it. So what shifted for you?
Children shifted. When I had my children, I was conflicted because, well, first of all, I had a high risk pregnancy. Mm-hmm. I had twins. The minute I found out I was having twins, the next word out of the doctor's mouth was they, it's high risk and they might have twin to twin. Like there were basically a lot of issues. I was having to go to my regular gynecologist, a high risk specialist. I was having to had a nurse that came and like checked on their heartbeat towards the end of the pregnancy. Like there were a lot of complications, and the fear of, first of all, I didn't even know, you don't know. Someone said it this way the other day and I loved it. She said, having children just opens another dimension of love in your heart. I loved it when she said that way. It's like there's this whole other, like, whoa.
I didn't even know existed.
I didn't even know this was even possible.
Love.
To love this much and to just be like so vulnerable and like be okay to be that vulnerable because I'm just whatever, like I love you. Yeah. And so for me, like there was so much fear around not having, for them to not make it, because it truly was, it was a scary time. So when I did have my children, I was very conflicted because if it were up to me at that point, I would have just quit my career. However, twins that's a big expense. Like all of a sudden we've got 2 children and I wanted to give them the best of everything. They were premature. I wanted to make sure that they had, that they had mother's milk, that they had, and it doesn't matter now, but when you're at that point in your first time parent, you want to get them the best booster seat and you want to get them the safest this and the safest that. And you need to get them all the little bibs. Things that now you realize like that doesn't matter. And 6 months later they outgrow it. But at that point you're like, but I want the best for my kids. Or at least I did. Sure. But we weren't, because of our situation and we just bought a home, we weren't able to afford me quitting. And the company that I was working at, they were in the process, there'd been some issues in the energy industry. So it was in a slump. And so we knew that there were going to be layoffs within the year. And I'd been there long enough that the severance package was going to be pretty sweet. and it would allow me to stay at home with them. And so for a year, I basically dragged my feet to work because all I wanted to do was stay at home with my babies.
Yeah.
I felt like the best thing I could do for the family was to, you know, to earn that income. And that was really, it tore at my heart. But anyway, I went home, I stayed home, and I have an amazing husband. He's super supportive, and we've been blessed to play. We've been playing tag where I stayed at home for a couple of years and then he stayed at home for a couple of years. We did that like 3 times where I stayed at home, he stayed at home, I stayed at home, and he stayed at home, which is awesome. So my kids,
well, the good thing is the kids had a good foundation and someone was always present for them.
They always had,
which is great, you know, and I'm sure they're thriving. As how could they not with all of that love and attention? But I know you had a health issue, and tell me a little bit about that.
That's when the health issue started. So even with my husband at home, there was a point when, so I guess at this point it was 2011, so 9 years ago, there came a point where I ended up in a really high corporate job, responsible for, you know, like billions of dollars basically. And I was given more and more responsibility, and our home was an hour away. So you live in Houston.
Oh my gosh.
Traffic, right? And so I just felt like fighting traffic to get in, fighting traffic to get out.
Long days.
Yeah. The company I was working for had gone through bankruptcy before I joined them. And so it was very lean. It was a very lean team. And so there was a lot, we basically were refinancing, and, you know, I was running part of the refinancing effort. Travel to New York. So that if I hadn't had children, I think that I would have been in my game, but that wasn't my priority anymore. And so I felt stretched. I felt drained. I felt like I wasn't enough. And it was very, very hard.
That's such a hard place to be.
It was hard.
Yeah.
And I was in a position at that point where my career had progressed so much because my husband's very supportive that I was probably making double what he was making, and we wanted to put our kids were in private school, and we wanted to be able to continue to have them in private school. And so it didn't feel like me quitting was really an option.
Right.
So it just, I was working, but I did not want to be there.
Your heart wasn't in it.
My heart wasn't in it anymore. I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. And so I got sick. I ended up at my gynecologist, and he discovered some thyroid nodules. He was concerned. So I ended up with an endocrinologist, and they did a biopsy, and it turned out that 2 of them were inconclusive. My dad's actually a physician, and it was very scary because the words out of his mouth were, you know what, if it's thyroid cancer, no big deal. It's the best kind of cancer for you to have. No worries. Oh, but by the way, you're probably also going to end up having diabetes and like all these other, like he basically had predicted my life for the next 20 years and how miserable and all these pills I was going to take. And that, with my personality, like that just made me mad. I was like, you do not get to tell me what's going to happen with my body and my health. I'm like, I'm not okay. Like, you do not get to predict. Like, no.
Right.
So I was incredibly blessed because I have an amazing sister who discovered Ayurveda and yoga years before me. And so she basically, when I started having kind of panic attacks, she introduced me to yoga, and I discovered that I could breathe. The breathing doesn't, you know, start here, that it should start in the belly. So I discovered how to breathe. And she connected me with an amazing woman in town. Her name's Sunita. She runs the Houston Ayurveda Center. I don't know if you've met her or you're familiar with her.
No.
But this woman changed my life. She basically did a treatment called Panchakarma, which is a 1-week Ayurvedic, like intense detox. And between starting the yoga, changing my diet, doing this detox in 3 months, when they went back to that for that follow-up checkup, every single nodule, all 5 of them had shrank 20% just by changes in lifestyle.
Wow.
And the detox. And so for me, as a daughter of a doctor, that just opened my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, the Panchakarma is not probably $1,500 treatment. Like, so all of these things that I did, like I had access to so many things. And I thought, what do other people do? What do people that don't have the means, or people that don't have access to all this information, people that don't have a sister that does this, and a
Right.
father who's supportive, and a husband that, like, what do these people do? And so eventually, fast forward, on my path at a yoga class, I went to yoga. I was like in Kingwood. So where all the retired hippies live, right? Like so there's like 70-year-old ladies doing pretzels with their body, and I couldn't even touch my toes. And I'm sitting here going like, well, I want to be you when I'm 80, but I can't.
Yeah.
And so the oils had really spread. The oils had really spread in Kingwood, and I had a bug bite or something. I had something on my arm, and one of these ladies, they all carry their little keychains around with their little, mini medicine cabinets, and she put frankincense oil on me, and it immediately stopped the itching. And the next day I woke up and it was completely gone. And so it really got me curious. And my dad's the kind of doctor that doesn't believe in medicine. He believes that you need to build up your immunity. And so I was like, okay, well, this frankincense, I know frankincense from the Bible, I'm interested. So that's what got me started. I have boys. So I was like, this is something that I know works on the skin for little skin issues. And eventually that same frankincense helped. My thyroid had started to heal, but it finished healing my thyroid. So when I went back 6 months later for the scan, after started using the frankincense, every single nodule was gone. And all of a sudden I had more energy. I was in better mood. I was sleeping better. Like, when your thyroid's off, everything's off. It impacts your mood. It impacts your weight. It impacts just everything about you.
Yeah.
And especially for me, it was the energy levels. I was just always so tired.
And plus having twins and
I was always tired.
Working, and it's a lot. It's a lot to manage stress-wise. And I'm so glad you found that. What a blessing that was.
It was very empowering. And for me, the fact that it was so, when I first started doing the Ayurveda and the yoga, and I started sharing that with my friends, they looked at me, because remember, think about the kind of friends that I had, right? My friends were all type A, successful, corporate, that it was not.
What are you talking about? We don't
they weren't interested.
You.
Yeah, they weren't interested. Right. And so I was like, no, but really, like, you need to prevent, like I felt like I knew something that I needed to warn them. It's like, you need to, like, let me warn you, because
they have to be able to receive the message.
Yes, I learned that eventually. But then with the oils, what I found is that even people who might not be open to changing their diet or meditation or yoga, the oils were so easy. They smell good. They think, oh, it's like perfume. It's like a candle. So that was a very easy way to bring them in to the lifestyle, right? If someone doesn't sleep well, you give them some lavender and all of a sudden they slept better. It's more mainstream. They're more open to that.
Right.
And then from Mexico, and being able to help people in Mexico, a $20 bottle of peppermint is so economical. So compared to buying 15 different medications for fever and for, respiratory support and digestive issues, it's like one little bottle of peppermint. So from that perspective, I was like, wow, I can help empower women to take care of their family with something that is
affordable,
super practical, very affordable. They can feel like, just like whenever I used to I would get horrible cramps when I was young, and my grandmother would give me chamomile tea. Like, for me, it was natural. Growing up in Mexico, okay, you use plants. If you're not feeling well,
I was just going to say, I would think that culture is more skewed or prone to turn to a more holistic.
They're very open. They're very open in natural solutions. Yeah. And so it started with that, but eventually what it's turned into, and what we were talking about before this call, it started with me wanting to give people that option, because I knew most people can't afford a $1,500 1-week Ayurvedic treatment. They can't take the time off work. They probably can't afford, right? Like, between the time and the money, either they have the money to pay for it, but they don't have the time, or they have the time, but they don't have the money.
Right.
And with essential oils, it's something that you can just incorporate into your life. It's affordable. So I started that way, but eventually I started getting messages because you have the option of either just using the product, referring people and getting free oils, or doing the business. Well, the women that started doing the business, I'd get a call like, thanks to my doTERRA income, I was able to buy new tennis shoes for my child for school this year, or a new backpack, or a new jacket, or put them in piano lessons. So I started getting these messages, and I realized, wow, like, I can really empower women, not just to take charge of their family's health, but to actually financially bring money, because most Mexican women are not, like, I was kind of the outlier, right? Like, a Mexican woman that's, hey, I'm going to go and be in corporate America, and I'm going to work with investment bankers. Like, that's not your typical Mexican woman, right? Like, that was not how, like, my friends in Mexico, that's how my friends in the US thought. That's not how my friends in Mexico thought. But I saw it like, wow, this is my opportunity to really help empower women with their finances, and to not feel like Like I know so many women that they don't know how the bills are handled. They don't understand the checkbook. They don't know their husband has insurance.
How much of that is cultural, right? I mean, it's all cultural, how you're raised and what is modeled is what
Exactly.
you follow, right? And I'm really curious to find out how you resolved this shift from this very high-powered corporate responsibility and this incredible financial position you created for yourself to now you're selling essential oils. How did you reconcile that and figure out who you were and then have the courage to say, you know what, I firmly believe in this? Because as you mentioned earlier, all your friends were in that, you know, type A, go mode, financial achievement. I work for corporate America and I'm defined by that. And so how did you navigate that? Because there must have been some feelings around that shifting into, you know, becoming a distributor of essential oils and having people take you seriously, right?
I had to overcome a lot. I had to overcome my ego. So after, you know, being at home for a bit and focusing on healing my body and discovering the oils, my husband, first of all, he said, hey, at first I considered opening an Ayurvedic center in North Houston because it had been such a blessing to me.
Right.
But I didn't feel like I wanted to go and study it. It takes years to study Ayurveda. I didn't have it. Like I didn't have the interest. I still have the kids. And then I thought, well, maybe I could open a yoga studio. But yoga studios, that's another whole complicated issue.
Sure.
And then when the oils came around and my husband was like, he's the one who recommended, he actually had a prostate issue that we were able to resolve with essential oils within minutes. Like this was a 6-month-long prostate issue that our friend who's a urologist was not able to take care of with antibiotics. And so within minutes of him applying essential oils, he got some relief. It came back 30 minutes later, but he kept using it. And eventually, just like me, 6 months later, his body actually healed. His body was actually able to heal. And so he was like, you know, this stuff works, Mayra. You should really consider selling this. And I was actually very offended when he brought it up because I'm like, I got a master's degree.
Don't you know me?
I'm a CPA. I'm not going to sell perfume. I don't think so, honey. Like what are you thinking? I mean, you know, it's funny now, but at that point I was really closed off to the idea. Like for the same reason, it's like, I didn't work so hard to build my career to then, you know, completely destroy it in my mind by selling essential oils, right? So I was fortunate because a few months after I had signed up, there was a big Doterra event in town, and one of the CEO and founder of the company came and spoke. And I'm sitting in this room with probably, 500 women. And I look around and it's, you know, suburban housewives, right? 95, like no one like me. I did not fit in. It's like one of these things is not like that. They're like, it was not my crowd. Yeah. And I did not feel like it was my crowd. And so at the end of it, I got a chance. The person who I enrolled under she's amazing. She's not so much a business person, but she's very much a healer. She's got a gift, and that's why she was able to help me and my husband, you know, just find all of these wonderful experiences so quickly. And so she was able to introduce me to him. And so he explained to me why I asked him, I was like, these products work so well. I just don't understand your business model. Like why, you know, for me as a finance person, I'm thinking Ponzi scheme, like it just like, just the word MLM's like, dirty, right? Like why? Like why do you choose to sell your products this way? And he said, okay, Mayra, if you go to Whole Foods and you see 40 or 50 essential oils on the shelf and you have, you know, that thyroid issue, who's gonna take the time to sit there and explain to you how to use it, how long to use it for? Like who's gonna do that? And would you even feel comfortable asking someone? And would you even trust them? And I sat there and I was like, you're right. And so he said, this is a belly to belly, person to person. This is more than anything, this is trust. And trust is what you're doing when people are, you know, they're trusting you with their health and they're trusting you with advice and guidance. And it clicked because that's exactly what, she's not my best friend. That's exactly what she had done for me. I had all these questions and she, you know, like we kept having good experiences that I kept trusting her and trusting her. Like my
You're building relationships.
all about
You're
relationships.
helping people heal. You're creating income. I mean, there are a lot of pros to this, right?
But I think the income part didn't matter to me because I could create income in a different way.
Right.
That wasn't what I was.
I'm saying for a everyday woman who is or man who's interested in getting involved in doTERRA.
Yeah.
Those are the things, right?
Yeah. What interested me was the ability to really make a difference in people's health and do it with a natural way that wouldn't be. I remember my dad's a doctor, and so he's a doctor that doesn't believe in medicine. So my whole life I heard, don't trust the doctors, don't trust medicine, right? Not in a mean way, but he was like, you need to think for yourself and really, the doctor's going to see you for 10 minutes. He doesn't know what you're doing the rest of the day. Like, we're responsible, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair for them for us to show up and be like, fix me. Like, we're responsible for our own health. And so for me, that was what really excited me, is like, I'm giving people options. And I'm not saying, I actually really believe in integrative medicine and the integrative approach, like to get the best of both worlds, but at least understand what this is. And so the education part, that's where he got me. He got me with you have the chance to make an impact by teaching people about the options. And I'm a learner. Mm-hmm. So the ability to be like, I can take all of this information and then make it super simple and share. I used to be in consulting right at one point. And so, and share this to where people can actually get what this means. That was incredibly exciting for me.
So is that when you knew that this was your path, after having that conversation?
It got me interested enough to go to a convention in Utah. And in that convention, there were like 18,000 people. And in that, because Houston was barely getting started. So the people that were in were the housewives that live in the suburbs, right? So when I went, and the other thing that he said is, it's going to be up to people like you to bring in the doctors, to bring in the nurses, to bring in the professionals, because like attracts like. So he was basically saying, you want to change this crowd? It's going to be on you to change that crowd. And I was like, ooh, like that's a challenge. So I went to convention, and in convention, that's where I saw people from all over the world. And that's where I saw, okay, these are my people. I do fit in. They have the same values. They care about the planet. They care about natural health. They care about helping other people. Does that, right? So that's where I was like, okay, the people that are in Houston, it's just the first wave, right? It needs to spread to where there's more people that are like-minded like me.
Right.
At around the same time, they opened the Mexico market. So Mexico wasn't open
for you. Was so perfect.
It was the
I
perfect.
can't believe that.
So they opened the market in Mexico. And so that was a challenge that in my mind, going back to the ego, and my challenge was worthy of me. Like, okay, I'm going to take this and share it all over Mexico. And so that was super. I've got family all over Mexico. So I traveled everywhere for like a month and just educated and taught. And that was super exciting. And then I came back to the US, and obviously this is where I live. This is where my friends are. I started sharing it here. And eventually, I think like maybe 6 months into it, after I decided to share, my husband, who had a fantastic job, he was vice president of his company, all of a sudden comes home and is like, I just got laid off.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, we had just built our, dream home. Our kids were in private school. Like for me, up to that point, doTERRA wasn't about the money. It was like, I love it and this is fun. It's almost like my hobby and it's super cool. Well, all of a sudden he loses his job. And so I'm faced with either I go back to the corporate world to be able to pay for our lifestyle, or I need to figure out how to get doTERRA to work and get it to work quick, right? Because doTERRA is great, but it's not a get rich quick. Like you have to build it. And so it basically, it's like, put the fire under me. I did go and I interviewed and I had a great opportunity, but it just didn't I wasn't excited about it. It's like been there, done that.
Didn't resonate with you.
No,
Your values. It sounds like you've got a whole shift in values.
Exactly.
It sounds like you were going through some sort of, as you were going deeper and deeper through this process, you were shifting and aligning more with your soul.
I absolutely. With my calling, with like my true, my
your
purpose.
Absolute calling. And once you get a knowing of what that is, you just lock into that lane, and there is nothing that can pull you off that path, regardless of how lucrative it looks or how how great it sounds or how good it looks on paper. When your soul finds its purpose and your reason for being here on this planet, and you are in your lane in service to others, it is
There's no price.
that's all you need. That becomes
Like
your
your car's just like, it's full. You go to bed satisfied at night. You were like, yeah, I feel good.
yes.
And so that's what happened. I was faced with that choice, and it was a real choice. It was like, we sell our new home, we take our kids out of school, you know, or somehow I magically make Doterra work. So if you had ears and you had a heartbeat and you were on my, I'm not going to call it Rolodex, but if you were in my contacts on my phone, guess what? You were getting a phone call from me, and I was going to give you a sample, and you were going to, you know, learn about essential oils. And I just,
that was a huge pivot point for you. That was a huge pivot point because it went from being sort of this side hustle to like, I'm dialing in and I'm making this happen. And just the little bit I know about you, Mayra, when you put your mind to something, it happens.
that's what happened. That's what happened. And I was able to very quickly grow my team.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the rest of it is history. It's been now 6 years that I've been with Doterra, and it's just been
6 years. It's been six years. And I don't know if you guys know, I didn't know what this meant. Being a blue diamond with Doterra means you are one of the top 300 performers or distributors in the world. I am so impressed by you that you took it from that to where you are now. I mean, I'm not surprised, obviously, because your passion and purpose married, and you know, you're like the perfect package with that incredible education, your intellect, and you are so personable. So,
I appreciate
you know, being able to naturally help people and share your message, I think is a huge part of your success.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the honor in that, and so what's super great about that, before, I'm not going to say my worth or like my value or my contribution. My contribution was almost like, how big's my bonus at the end of the year defined my value. Does that make sense? And now, like being a blue diamond, it's not about, yeah, I've got a great paycheck, but it's not about that. It's being a blue diamond represents 5,000 families that have essential oils in their life, right? Being a blue diamond means there's like over 1,000 distributors that are making an income that may not have otherwise had a way of making an income.
You're changing lives.
And yeah, I'm actually able to, you know, influence people's lives for the better. And it's giving them options, right? It all comes back to options. And so that is so much more rewarding.
Yeah.
A big bonus.
Yes, of course. I mean, and I'm sure you're getting this exponential growth because people are able to get support from you. People are able to connect with other people. I mean, it seems like this web kind of forms where people start, you know, teaming up and interconnecting and sharing business practices that are, it sounds like it becomes a family.
It absolutely is a beautiful community. I was on a call, on a team call with some of my top leaders right before this call. And my next kind of level of evolution, which I'm easing into, is being a leader that is not necessary, right? So a good leader makes themselves progressively not needed. And so that's my next point. That's where I'm moving towards. So there's different kinds of leaders. There's micromanagers, and then there's absentee leaders. And so I'm working now on being like a macro manager leader, which is basically in it with them, but giving them the space. So not being the star of the show, right? All my life.
Almost like you're walking next to them, empowering them, aligning with them, supporting them, but giving their wings to fly.
And letting them shine their light, right? So from being someone who my whole life was, I need to be number one, I need to be number one. Now it's like, ooh, I get to step to the side and let you shine. And that's pretty cool. That's like that's a new thing.
That is so beautiful. You know, one of the things that I learned that was really powerful for me in my life was I used to always be a giver. right? I would give my entire self away and have nothing left. Just always giving, always making sure everybody had what they needed and showing up. I mean, that's what I did. I showed up, you know, for everyone but myself, ultimately.
The Giving Tree. You're making me think of that book, The
Yes,
Giving
that
Tree. I
book.
always cry at the end of that
I
book.
know the book, The Giving Tree, when you have nothing left. And I had this really powerful moment as I kind of came back to myself and locked into my lane, where I realized that you can light the candle of another without diminishing your own.
Ooh, okay, you're not going to believe this. On my vision board, I literally have that, Wendy. I literally
What?
have a candle lighting another candle, which was like, I am giving you, but by me giving you, I still get to have what I
You
have. Now you
expand.
also lit up. I will have to send you a picture.
That's
I have that on
amazing.
my vision board.
So yes, that was such a powerful realization for me. The more I love myself, the more I can align with my truth and my mission and my purpose and fill my cup and fill my soul and align in that way, then now I am giving in a much more powerful way because I'm not diminished. I'm not trying to pour from an empty cup. My cup runneth over, and I can continue to expand and share and empower other people without diminishing my own light. I just love that that's on your vision board, and
It's
how
awesome.
amazing
Yeah,
is that. I knew I liked you. I knew we had something in common.
same here. Same here. That is awesome that you said that. And
So
you can help other people too. You're not just limited to, I helped you, but then I don't have anything for anyone else. It's like, it keeps growing because I can keep helping other people, and then you can keep helping other
I
people.
was going to say exactly. There's this ripple effect, right? That you think, oh, I'm just really helping and empowering this one woman. No, you're changing her whole life, because she is going to then bring all of that to her family, her friends, her way of being and her light, which is enhanced through this, um, is going to just continue to ripple out. So those ripples, you know, it starts with you, but the reach is global. And that is the most beautiful thing about this. And I just love that you not only found personal healing for yourself, but you got clarity and aligned with your life's purpose. And now you're living it. And you really are living the dream once you lock into that and find that, and you're able to share that and model it for others. It's just so beautiful, Mayra. I just want to honor you and honor your journey and honor
I'm
the
very
fact
grateful
that you had this inner compass driving you. What it feels like is you didn't allow fear to hold you back. There were so many opportunities where you could have gone back to that comfort zone and been like, nope, my heart's here, but I'm going to go here. And the fact that you had the courage to just really say, no, I can do this. I can make this work. It's just remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that the other thing, which I didn't mention, which is a huge part of, I think I've told you, I'm blessed, and I really do. I feel like I've partnered with God. I have partnered with God so it doesn't all have to come from me. So going back to what you're saying about, if it just comes from me, yes, I'm depleted, but if it comes from my higher self, if it comes with help from the spirit, if it comes from me really aligning,
flowing through that, when you're in your alignment and in that column and in that connection and really honoring that intuition and that truth and acting on it instead of resisting it. And that's where taming the ego is huge.
the
That's
ego
when
is
you
the enemy.
push those thoughts and that ego that wants to, I always say it, that ego is always trying to take the wheel from me. And I'm like, you can't have my car keys. I'm in charge here. You know, always like beating it back, you know, just have that courage and strength to say, no, I'm here and I'm going to do this. And is huge. And I know you're modeling that for your team. You're modeling that for others. So you are lighting that candle, which is so beautiful.
I'm trying.
Yeah, congratulations. I wanted to talk about this one other thing we had discussed off air, which was, you know, when you were pregnant with the twins, there was such a love for them. And you had this vision you kept holding on to. And I was wanting to share that story with the audience, because I think it was so powerful, and it really kind of gave you a glimpse of the power of
I have to show you.
manifestation.
Give me a second. So when I was pregnant with them, and it was a high risk pregnancy, and we had, all sorts of complications and issues, this was before I was exposed to, meditation, visualization, like any of these concepts that most people, or hope, are aware of now. But in my mind's eye, I just pictured them playing on the beach, having fun, hauling sand, making sand castles, and I pictured, I was like, no, they have to live. They have to live. Like, this has to happen. Like, I felt it, right? Like, I felt the emotion of seeing my kids just healthy and happy and, running around playing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I don't know if you can see this.
Oh.
This is basically what I saw. And so this ended up happening.
I just got chills looking at that picture. Like, you were gifted that. It's amazing. That's amazing.
It's a good life. It's a good life, Wendy. We just have to let it be a good life.
Exactly. And you're creating this life.
We have to be willing to, yeah, this is what God wants for us. He wants us to have a good life. We just have to let it happen.
I think a lot of times we forget that we get to decide, like you said, when that doctor was sitting there telling you all of these things, determining your future, that's not who gets to determine your life. We get to make the choices and take the steps and move in the directions that we feel are going to create our future in our life and our version of it. I think so many people want to have that, but they are really influenced by the opinions of others. And I read something today that really struck me, and it said it's not your responsibility to be, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, it's not your responsibility to be the version of you that someone else wants for you, was basically the message. I think a lot of people are afraid to really follow and create their dreams because they're busy trying to please others. Whether it's your mother, your peers, your people in your culture that have expectations of you. It takes courage to stand in your light and say, no, this is who I am and this is who I'll be in my life. This is what I'm creating,
Well, and just in hearing you right now, I'm thinking maybe that was another, in a way, benefit of me not really fitting in on either side of the border, is that I'm used to not fitting in. Like, I'm used to not being like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so I don't care what people think about me. Because
Me either. It took me a long time to get to that place though. And I'm really, I can really identify with you in not really knowing where I belonged. I always kind of felt like I was on the outside, even though I had a lot of friends and, I never felt like I belonged until I really found myself. Then I belonged to myself. I'm like, oh, yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
I fit into these different boxes, but I don't fit in there. I'm supposed to be me. And so I hope that your story will encourage my listeners to take that message to heart. There is no brighter light than the one that shines in you. And it's really important that you show up in the world as your beautiful self, because that's why you're here, right?
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. And so, Mayra, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure sharing your story. And I'm glad you live in Houston. We'll have to connect in person next time. We'll make that happen. But do you have any parting words for our audience? Something that may have really helped you navigate in those really tough spaces where you were doubting or just overwhelmed or?
So I kind of said it already, but I think for me, really, you said, I didn't let fear take over, and it was because of faith, right? It's my faith. So they say faith over fear. And it's true. when you have a really good connection to your higher self, I call him God. He strengthens you. And I think that, like, for me, something that I do every single day, I've been doing this for years. There's a wonderful book called The Magic. I don't know, have you read this book, The Magic? It's by the same author of The Secret. It's absolutely fabulous. And it's a gratitude journal. And basically it's like a gratitude practice. It's absolutely fabulous. And I read that about 2 years ago, and I started incorporating that. It's supposed to last a month, but after you do it for a month, it completely transforms your life. And so every single day, I start my day with my journal. And the way I do it is it's part of my prayer time, but I'm thanking God, and I'm saying, I put 10 things that I'm grateful for. And then I go back and I say why I'm grateful for them. And it could be something that even seems not that big a deal, but hey, if you lose your air conditioning in Houston in the middle of a summer, guess what? It's a big deal. So I'm grateful for air conditioning, right? I'm grateful for clean water. I'm grateful, obviously, like my children started to drive. I'm grateful that they drove me back from Austin and that we were safe, that we didn't have any accidents. So, just little things. And so I do that in the morning, and then at night, every night before I go to bed, I think about, okay, well, what's the best thing that happened to me that I'm most grateful for? So I basically have bookends to my day. I start my day in gratitude and I end my day in gratitude. And the more that we focus on what's going right in our lives, it's amazing how more and more things start going right, because that's what we're seeking. That's where our,
Well, I think what we place our attention on grows.
Exactly.
Where we place our attention grows. And a gratitude practice is a daily practice of mine as well. And also I encourage my clients to have a daily gratitude practice. They did this Harvard study that after 21 days of practicing gratitude, you kind of rewire what's going on inside of you, and your worldview shifts. And if you suffer from depression, it starts to change the way you look at things. And I do love that quote by Wayne Dyer: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
I love it.
And I love that. That is such a beautiful offering that you just shared. And Mayra, where can people find you? Where can they reach you?
So I am on Instagram at Mayra Empowers. I'm sure that that makes sense, right? It's all about empowering people.
Yes.
And if you're bilingual, I'm on YouTube. So Instagram, it's English and Spanish. And on YouTube, I am Mayra Powers. If you just click Mayra Powers YouTube, you'll see lots and lots of information show up in Spanish.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. You've been such a beautiful guest and a blessing to have. I hope you have an incredible year. I have no doubt you're going to finish strong and keep going and building your global empire with Doterra. Thank you so much, Mayra. And
thank you, Wendy. This was absolutely my pleasure. Take care.
Thank you to my audience. Thank you so much. Y'all be kind to yourselves, and I will see you next time.